In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. I'd like to welcome all of you to our time of spiritual reading. And as always, we begin with reading today's Gospel with a short reflection. A reading from the Gospel of St. John. Mary stayed outside near the tomb weeping. Then, still weeping, she stooped to look inside, and she saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had been, one at the head and the other at the feet. They said, "Woman, why are you weeping?" "They have taken my Lord away," she replied, "and I do not know where they have put him." As she said this, she turned round and saw Jesus standing there, though she did not recognize him. Jesus said, "Woman, why are you weeping? Who are you looking for?" Supposing him to be the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have taken him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will go and remove him." Jesus said, "Mary." She knew him then, and she said to him in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means master. Jesus said to her, "Do not cling to me, because I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go and find the brothers, and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." So Mary of Magdala went and told the disciples where she had seen the Lord, and that he said these things to her. The absence of his body from the tomb only adds to the sadness and confusion that has been Mary's since Jesus' death. The presence and the words of the angels do very little to ease her inner pain. And even when Jesus stands before her, she initially fails to recognize him. It is only when Jesus calls her by name that she recognizes him. Jesus constantly calls each one of us by our name. Do we always see him? Do we always recognize him before us? We now continue reading from our book entitled Interior Freedom, written by Father Jacques Philippe. Live instead of waiting to live. Our present life is always something good, for the Creator has endowed it with a blessing he will never cancel, even though sin has rather complicated things. God saw that it was good. The book of Genesis tells us this. For God, seeing means not merely taking note, but actually conferring reality. And so this fundamental goodness of life is also expressed by Jesus when he says, "Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing?" Sometimes, though, it isn't worry that causes us to focus on the future, but the hope of something better or happier. It may be a very specific event, like a reunion with someone we love, or coming home after a long, tiring journey. Or it may be less well defined, the time when things will go better, circumstances will change, life will be more interesting. At present, we tell ourselves we don't really have a life, but later on, we will live life to the full. There is nothing wrong with this, of course, but it does contain a certain danger. We may spend simply our whole lives waiting to live. Thus we risk not fully accepting the reality of our present lives. Yet what guarantee is there that we won't be disappointed when the long-awaited time arrives? Meanwhile, we do not put our hearts sufficiently precisely into living today. And so we miss so many graces that we would have received. Let us live each moment then to the full, not worrying about whether time is going quickly or slowly, but welcoming everything given to us moment by moment. To live today well, we also should remember that God only asks one thing at a time. He never asks for two. It does not matter whether the job we have in hand is sweeping the kitchen floor or giving a speech to 40,000 people. We must simply put our whole hearts into it, simply, serenely, calmly, and not try to solve more than one problem at a time. Even when what we're doing is genuinely trifling, it is a mistake to rush through it as though we felt we were wasting our time. If something, no matter how ordinary, needs to be done and is part of our lives, it's worth doing for its own sake and worth putting our whole hearts and souls into it. Availability is fundamental in our relations with other people. In every single encounter with someone else, however long, however short it may be, we should make him feel we're 100% there for him at that precise moment, with nothing else to do except be with him and do whatever needs doing for him. Good manners, yes, but also real, heartfelt availability. This is very difficult, since we have a strong sense of propitiatory rights to our time, and easily tend to get upset if we cannot organize it as we so choose. But this is the price, always, of a genuine love. If Jesus asks us not to have any worries, that is mainly to safeguard the quality of our relations with other people. A heart preoccupied by concerns and worries is not available to serve other people. Parents should remember this very, very much. Children can get along happily without constantly demanding their parents' attention, provided there are regular times when dad or mom have no concern except being with them. If we are riddled with anxieties instead of leaving them in the hands of God, we cannot offer our children that kind of time, and they will never feel secure within our love, no matter how many expensive gifts we may lavish upon them. If we try to live like that and so deepen our relationship with God and, of course, our prayer life, so that we can perceive His presence within us and live as much as possible in communion with His indwelling, we shall soon discover something wonderful, the interior rhythm of grace that our life follows at its very deepest level. It might be said that there are two modes of time: time of the head and the time of the heart. The first, of course, is psychological time, the time in our minds which we make calculations about and divide into hours and days to be managed and planned. This kind of time always goes either too fast or perhaps too slowly. But there is another sort of time experienced at certain moments of happiness or grace, though it always exists. This is God's time, the time of the deep rhythms of grace within our lives. It is composed of a succession of moments harmoniously linked. Each of those moments is complete in itself, full, because in it we do what we have to do in communion with the will of God. That time is really communion with eternity. It is time we receive as a precious, precious gift. If we always lived in that time, we would have much less opportunity for harm and for wrongdoing. The devil slips into time we live badly because we are refusing something or grasping too eagerly at something else. The saints habitually lived in that interior time. To do that, of course, required great inner freedom, total detachment from our own plans and programs and inclinations. We must be ready to do in an instant just what we had not expected, to live in total self-abandonment, with no other concern than simply doing God's will and being fully available to people and to events. We also need to experience in prayer God's presence within us and to listen inwardly, interiorly, to the Holy Spirit so as to follow His suggestions. Then nothing is left to chance. Often we may journey into darkness, but we sense that our lives are unfolding in a rhythm we do not control, but to which we are happy to abandon ourselves, and by which all events are arranged with infinite wisdom.